Good evening and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG review. I am DM Bluddworth, and as you can see by the graphics, tonight's video is my AD&D First Edition Greyhawk campaign. This is Season 1, Session 2, and just wanted to, catch you up to speed with where the campaign is at. So, if you watched the last episode, you'll know that the the players brought their characters out of the stronghold of Quescaton, which is the central location for B1 in Search of the Unknown. So it's an official Dungeons and Dragons module that I converted for use in my campaign, and it's been highly modified to match up with kind of where I'm looking for the world setting to look like, and some themes that I'm looking to have the player characters pursue during the course of their careers. And so I took this location and really did kind of build it into what the players' goals are for their characters, and the just the cooperation that I've had in this campaign of kind of bringing it all together. And for some of my players, this is their first real time playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition. So I tried to really bring a true sense of the game and its mechanics and such to the table for them, with only a few modifications here and there. So there are some house rules that I utilize, and there is perhaps some home brewing that I do, and I've done videos where I kind of parse out what each of those terms means to me. But um, but as we came to the end of season one, I pretty much had an idea of where the players might want to go in a number of different directions, and so that was going to be a major component of season two, session one. Um, Now, I did have some commentary and some at least one question from a subscriber that I wanted to address here as well, because he had asked the how am I handling the world economy and how it relates to the player characters. And so basically, how am I handling that in between time between adventures, and the economic impact on basically the player characters. So in AD&D First Edition, there's a rating system that can be used by the dungeon master to rate the performance level of the player character party in an overall sense. I mean, you could individualize it too, but that's a little bit much, work to do. So what happens is that if they rate a one, I believe it's a one to a four. A one being flawless and no training cost whatsoever. A two is considered below average, and the training cost would be 50% of its normal cost. A three would be average and incur the full cost of per level that they were looking to gain. And then a four is double the cost, and so a four would be a really poor performance, possibly even a failure where the character obviously still survived. But when I took a look at that, and the base for average was 1,500 gold pieces for the current level that you were at. So if you were level one looking to go to level two, you would need 1,500 gold pieces if your average overall rating was a three, which is barely passable. And it would also incur a 1 week training time as well. So what I did was I looked at it. A one rating would be 0, and I didn't feel that a 0 should be possible. There should always be some cost incurred because you're getting trained by an NPC, and that NPC might have his or her own training that he also needs, and so you're going to they're going to need to collect money as well. So what I did was I just changed it a little bit and I made it 25% or 240 gold pieces at a rating of 1, and then it would be doubled at 2. It would be standard, 1500 at 3, and then so on. So I kind of went along those lines, and that was something that the players, by the time they reached third level, which was at the close of season 1, all of the characters leveled up to third level, and they started to notice that, wow, we've had a lot of experience that we've gained over these past 14 weeks of actual gameplay, and we're experience rich and gold coin poor. Now each of them had perhaps one magic item, so the magic items were never more than +1. So going from level 1 through 3, I always assume that at least one magic item is something that they should get during each level band, and then we'll see how that goes as well. So I know there are some people out there that says you should never get a magic item until like 5th level or higher. I'm not quite that stingy with them, but I also don't want the characters walking around with everything attached to their body as magical as well. So I'm dabbling with a few ideas to deal with that. But back to the economics in between adventures. So the players come into a town, and in this case, they did exactly that. And the first thing that they had to do was a line up for their training, and they calculated how much it would cost them. I believe on average it was between 700 and 800 gold pieces that they would need to level up. Some had their attribute bonus, so they'd get a plus 10% experience points gained. And I also applied that to reducing the amount that it would cost for them as well. And they started to realize, hey, you know what? We're going to have to start thinking about other ways to make money in order to pay for our training. And so I asked each of the players to identify for me, so I can look it up, either their non-combat proficiencies, any skills, background skills that they might have had from their birth or their family or whatever, whatever they might have had, any marketable, like mundane skills that they might have as a through their character class. So like a thief, even though a thief can go out and steal stuff for extra money too, which is always a possibility, and that would be fine. But a thief also has some ability in appraising things and such, so they could do some legitimate work to make money. They could be a locksmith and make money that way as well. A fighter could do guard duty and things like that. And none of these activities that they were going to do, I told them, would be experience point gaining, but it would earn them a couple gold here and there, and potentially be the difference between being able to pay for training and not being able to pay for training. So I certainly wanted them to keep that in mind, that not all of their downtime during the week that they might be training is just simply training. They're of course, they're eating and they're sleeping and they're interacting with NPCs around the town that they're in, and they might be doing these little side jobs. So I wanted that sense of realness that they'd have when they're in a town. So so there they were. They were in this. They were starting to plan out. All right, well, this is what I would do the next time that we're in town, because they were already booked for what they were doing in town this time around. And we pretty much have a have a course of action to take when they go next time into town for training, and I'll kind of look to see what opportunities are available to them and how much they might be able to make during that time frame and still get their training done. The only real bump in the road that they might face is if they have to spend some of that time actually in full bed rest, which we've had already on three separate occasions where three different characters ended up going into negatives and needed that full week's worth of bed rest, or slightly modified by constitution bonus, but still anywhere from 5 to 7 days completely laid up. So that's where we picked up season 2, session 1, and I called this the prelude to B2, the Keep on the Borderlands. So what the players had facing them were 4 or 5 different possibilities of a direction that they can go in, and some of these adventure hooks were tied to specific characters. Some were tied to the overall campaign, and some might be crossed over here and there. And so as the players were actually discussing, as their characters obviously, as they were discussing the various options that they had, they realized that, 2 or 3 of the adventures were clearly all taking place down south in and around the area of Kendallkeep. And so they decided, well, bottom line, we know which direction we're going to have to go into if we're going to pursue any one or more of these. That just seemed to be the real case. I know some people say, oh, that's railroading, but they had options every step of the way. They could have decided, no, we're going to go up north to Loftwick because they're in Yeomanry, and we're going to go up to the capital and follow this other very minute trace of information that they could gather. I mean, it might become more important later on, but at the moment, I certainly underplayed that because I knew there was so much more going on in a different location. So, I think that's important as a DM, is to, certainly give them a bunch of options in directions that they can go in. They could, of course, suggest their own, and that was like 3 out of the 5 options they really kind of generated on their own. I didn't expect for them to take an interest in certain items that they wanted to pursue and discover more about. So that's what really spurred on, as I said, like 3 side quests for them. And then I just worked them into the overall story that they were, potentially pursuing. And a couple I left as complete tangents, which they don't know which ones are which yet. But the adventure that they settled on was to pursue this new hobgoblin chieftain that has arisen from what they believe to be some of the consequences of their actions when they had gone into the stronghold of Queskatan, and they themselves realized that they weren't as thorough as they thought they had been, or perhaps they were delayed a little bit, and certain things just fell out of their control, or may not have ever been in their control, but they were aware of them. And so that's how they were looking at this, where they said, you know what, we encountered hobgoblins in the stronghold. We certainly didn't defeat them all. We didn't, there may have been some that we left, left unchallenged. And when they departed the stronghold, they had cleaned out much of the treasury and much of the, the weapons caches, cache that was there, and they knew it. And they realized that, we're partly responsible. At least that's how they felt, that they were partly responsible, potentially, for this rise of hobgoblins in the region, and they wanted to put it down. All right, they wanted to address that issue and take care of it, and so that was one of their that became their primary goal. I believe it was the paladin Candrius who actually said, "Listen, the caves of chaos are still going to be there. Um, it may or may not be a growing threat, but at the moment, we know where the caves of chaos are, or roughly we know where there are, and they're not moving anywhere. This hobgoblin threat might be a growing threat, and I don't want to see the people that we're kind of working for have to suffer from it. And this is also partly a mentality that they've developed because they've seen the positive impact on both traveling to and from Westburn and Kendall Keep, uh, where they had wiped out a group of 30 bandits that were working that road area. And several weeks prior to this particular session, they had wiped them out, and the trade route became much safer. And people started to recognize that. And even, the government, the magistrate of Westburn was aware of it. The lord of the keep of Kendall Keep is also, they believe, aware of it, even though they haven't met him just yet. And they know that when we do really positive things that have an impact around the world or around this region, that we're going to gain some benefit from that. And they really like that idea. They like that their reputation is growing, and they like the fact that they really do have a sense that they're doing a good thing for the region. And so they wanted to pursue that, and I was certainly going to let them do it. Now, at one point, they met up with a caravan, and the caravan, based on their reputation, hired them and were willing to pay them 25 gold pieces each, just to continue protecting them as they continued their trip to Kendall Keep. And so that was another way that they could earn a little extra coin, not a tremendous amount, but perhaps enough just to put them over that line if they really needed it. And so the players certainly went along with that. They were going down south for a secondary purpose, and that was to return to Quescaton and to wizard lock the doors, because they know that they don't have the wherewithal to actually maintain a stronghold, but they also don't want it to fall into humanoid or other creatures' hands, where they have to go back and clear out what the portion of the dungeons that they had already done so. So they wanted to head to the south and then to the west to Quescaton, where they could then wizard lock that front entrance, so that at least they know that it'll be difficult for other things to get in there. And they wanted to raise some extra money so that they can hire hirelings in order to staff the Quescaton at the time. But they're still, again, feeling that pinch of needing some extra coin. And that's something that I think are really bringing the world alive for them, is the fact that there is a real economy out there. Some of the other things that I wanted to bring up about economy is that, the players have been asking, well, if I sell this item, how much am I going to get for it? And I started messing around with, very initially on, I was like, well, whatever the Dungeon Master's Guide says, or, whatever source book we have. And if it says it's worth 100 gold pieces, you're going to get 100 gold pieces. Then I started remembering the TV show Pawn Stars, where it's like they're lucky to get 40%. Now, I wasn't going to be that strict with it just yet. So some vendors that they have a relationship with, they might get 80% of the cost. Others that they have never met before, they might get maybe 40% of the cost. But if their reputation is preceding them as being the, do-gooders within the region that might approach to the 60 or the 80% again. Um, but there always has to be a profit margin for the reseller. They might also end up with some items that just can't be sold. I mean, if you get something that is worth 15,000 gold pieces and you're in a small town, you're not going to be able to move that product anywhere. They're not going to buy it from you, not unless they'll offer you 10%. All right, but some small mom and pop general store will not have the money to buy a magic item like that, or even a blacksmith or an armor smith or a weaponsmith. People used to dealing with those kinds of things, they've probably only seen at best like a +1, sword before, and maybe have the money to purchase something like that, for themselves for then later resale. But if you're walking in there with like a +3 sword worth, 15, 20,000 gold pieces, the average shopkeeper in even a larger city might not be able to move that either. You might have to sell that to a collector or something along those lines. So again, making the economy of the world is kind of important, and then just thinking about it and giving the players something to do when they're in town became a real focal point. So let's get right back to the adventure now, because I know my players are going to want to hear the recap as well. So they start moving about now. They've picked up quite a lot of clues from their conversations with the Druid Enclave and the Mages Guild in Westburn. So that's their main hub. That's their the large town or the small city that they go to in order to get their training. That's where they're selling some of their loot that they've come across, and they're starting to make some contacts within the town to gather information from. And so this is where they came up with their various potential adventures that they would go from, was from those conversations with the druids and with the magic users of Westburn. They also had a few little follow-ups, like I said, potentially to the north with some clerics, but they decided to go south. All right. They learned along those conversations that there's something very strange going on with a druidic enclave to the south, believed to be operating around the area of the Caves of Chaos. And the belief is that either the former magic user that controlled Quescaton had somehow created a form of lycanthropy that can affect demi-humans, or perhaps these dark druids had done that themselves as well. So they're tasked with discovering where that came from, and hopefully how to stop it. They also found back in Quescaton a portion, a piece of copper dragon skin. They wanted to pursue that as well, and a fur that the druids believed was actually the fur coat of a werebear, which again defies some of their understandings of lycanthropy, because usually when you kill a lycanthrope, it dies in its natural form. So it will revert to its natural form, and so it would be a human in most cases, or in all known cases prior to that. But this wasn't the case here. So again, another mystery that they want to look into. Just the mere fact that there are druids that are obviously following some kind of an evil ideology is also an anomaly that they want to investigate as well. So they start heading there, and they start making their way towards Kendall Keep, because they have that caravan they're going to drop off. They pick up a few more rumors here. They rest for the night in Kendall Keep, and then they start setting out towards Quescaton. And Quescaton isn't very far. It's about a mile from Candlekeep, or perhaps a mile and a half. And they know that the Caves of Chaos are just a bit further than that. So they know that they're going to be in this general area. And as they're walking along the road, they they encounter a group of hobgoblins. Now, because they have a ranger in the group, it's very hard to surprise the group. And so the group wasn't surprised, the hobgoblins weren't surprised, and a we go right into a combat round. Now this is about 2 hours and 15 minutes into our game session. So our game session was all a combination of training and talking and learning and making decisions and traveling for that first leg, going to another. So the way that the session is kind of broken down is I like to have multiple different interactions with the world and with the game system as well. So the players are going to train and explore and talk to NPCs and learn bits of lore and make decisions as a group, what direction they're looking to go into, and now the combat. All right, so they engage these these hobgoblins, and I'll jump right into it. So while making their way southward, they took advantage of an opportunity to escort the caravan, which I spoke about already, and they were certainly warmly welcomed into the keep. And the next morning, they decided to set out. And not soon thereafter, they were attacked by a small band of hobgoblins, 8 hobgoblins in total. So the way that they saw them was that they're traveling along the road, and the ranger, being a ranger and an archer as well, and he's very wilderness survival kind of guy. He's looking around and scanning the area as they're riding along, and he spots them first. And the way that the hobgoblins were arranged was there was a slope, and then like a, not quite a trench, but certainly another natural dip that they were laying in wait. And so once the player character group was within 50 yards, that's when first rank of hobgoblins, which was 4 of them, jumped up and started charging. Another 4 just got high enough onto the onto the incline where they could start getting their bows ready. All right, so the player characters are, this is what we have. We have this we have this group of potentially just 8 hobgoblins, and so they immediately start planning, because they know they don't have surprise, but they do have initiative, and they start shouting out to each other, this is what we're going to do, and they start declaring out, this is my action, I'm going to fire first. And whom fires first? Almost every single time, Angus the ranger is the first to fire. And very true to his actions, I'll just start this off. So 4 of the hobgoblins from the distance of about 50 yards suddenly broke from their concealment. Unfortunately for them, the party had a ranger. Angus fires his longbow. He gets 2 shots his first round, and 3 his second. So he fires off his longbow with deadly precision. I believe he rolled like a 20 on his first roll and like a 17 on his second. Modified, it became like a 23. So so he immediately kills out 2 of the hobgoblin archers before they even could knock their arrows. Breeze, who is an elven cleric, and his deity actually, her primary weapon is a longbow. So Breeze can use a longbow as well as a cleric. I use that rule even in first edition, where a cleric can use the primary weapon of their deity, whether it's bladed or edged or whatnot. So Breeze likewise fires his bow. Its point sticks deeply into one of the archer's legs. All right, so yeah, he fires off a round, an arrow, and it digs pretty darn deeply into that hobgoblin's leg, but it doesn't kill him. I think he did like 5 points of damage, and these hobgoblins had around seven hit points, so they were slightly better than average hobgoblins. Next up was Sparrow. Sparrow is our half-elf druid, and she casts an entanglement spell, all right, on the charging hobgoblin. So she casts a spell in which she entangled two of them and slowed two of them. So that basically means two of the hobgoblins made their saving throws. The other two did not. Mirador then cast. He's a human cleric, and he rode forward, and he cast a hold person spell on two of the archers, and that because there was only two of them, and that's all he was casting it at. There was no. He'd get both of them. There was no problem with getting both of them, and they both failed their saves, and so they were both held. So now the archers are completely eliminated in just the first missile and portion of the magic phase. He then shouted out to the whole group, "Don't kill those two." So he wanted to make sure that they captured at least two of these hobgoblins for interrogation, to find out some more information about the surrounding area, because they knew they were riding into a fairly dangerous portion of the roadway between Kendall Keep and a town to the town to the west. Let me keep on going. So, charging on his newly purchased heavy warhorse, Candrius, armed with his spear and shield, took a pass on one of the hobgoblins, but he missed. So too did the melee attacks of Amalric, Ennis, and Crandon. So all of the melee happened to miss during this very first round. Crandon, in fact, nearly fumbled to the point of his weapons getting ensnared and entangled. So he fumbled with his first attack, and he still missed with his second. And the way that we described it was that when he swung his sword, it was a wild swing. It kind of took him off balance, but he was able to use his dexterity, and he had to make a dexterity check to avoid his sword or himself getting entangled in the entanglement spell. And then that's how we kind of explained why his second attack also missed. Although that, fortunately, was not a double fumble for him. Otherwise, he would have been in serious problem. But because he was kind of off balance, that could be one way we could explain why the orc swinging its scimitar at him hit him for maximum damage. So once again, this was a second time that my reaction when I rolled the die, everybody's like, "Oh, geez," because I was like, "Oh, wow," and he took the full 8 points of damage, and I described it to him as it was very similar to the last time that Crandon took such a hit, but because Crandon was no longer first level, he's now a third level thief. His training and expertise going from first level to third level, the big difference maker was the fact that this same sword strike, it was the same location as the last time too, did not put him into negative hit points. And I know there was a recent debate about hit points and how do you explain away hit points and the growing number of hit points. Does that mean that your body just gets tougher and tougher and tougher? No, you can explain it away as their training and experience allows them to avoid getting hit as much as possible, and so um, 8 points at first level might kill you, whereas 8 points at third level merely draws some blood and injures you. All right, so we get through that, and we start getting into the continued attacks by the hobgoblins. They hit the fighter, Ennis, for for a couple of points, and they also hit the paladin as he passed by on his horse. Got a lucky shot on him and did very minor injury. I believe like 2 hit points of damage he took, so it was no big deal. Another goblin. All right, so hobgoblin hit Deb, so I handled that. Sorry, I'm reading my notes. So Angus once again fired 2 arrows, killing 2 more hobgoblins. So this is the second round. Breeze also hits another with his arrow. Sparrow sling stone misses its target. So that was the first time that she attacked. Using her sling and this is during the missile phase, obviously. Mirador cast a heal spell on Crandon, so he healed up, I believe it was 4 points of the 8 that Crandon was injured. So Mirador spent that round healing up Crandon. Ennis finished off the goblin that Breeze had, hobgoblin, I mean, that Breeze had wounded the previous round. Almora killed a hobgoblin that had attacked Candrius, and Cendric used his natural healing skill to aid Ennis. So the magic user ran up and used his natural healing abilities on Ennis because when you're using natural healing in first edition AD&D, you can only heal up 1 to 2 hit points of damage the round immediately following when that damage occurred, and so that's how we spent that time. Within that final round, once the last of the 8 were killed by Ennis and Amalric, 2 were captured. Remember, are still entangled. Ennis finished them off. So the battle was over, but in the distance, the party spotted another group, possibly larger than this first one, receding into the distance towards a large mound that they could barely make out in the morning mist. In a far off distance, they could see a group of hobgoblins receding and going up over this large mound in a distance. Now, don't know where the player characters are going to go next. Whether they continue heading towards Quescaton or if they're going to give chase, that's really their decision, and we'll find out when we get there. So once the battle's over, they start securing the 2 hobgoblins that they captured, and we were at that point coming up towards the end of our normal session, so we're close to 3.5 hours in, and so I didn't want them to take it to another encounter or another travel, because really want to give full time to whatever they're going to engage in, and we try not to go over. We're playing Monday nights; it's a work night, and so we try to respect everybody's ability to play when we do play, and close out games when we try to. So I always search for a good moment to bring it to an end. So they secured up the group. They rummaged through their belongings. So it was pretty meager pickings. They picked up like 48 silver pieces, and the 8 scimitars and some bows. So they had 8 scimitars, 4 longbows that they're starting to think, well, we could probably sell those off if we really need to. And then the the XP distribution, I kind of told them already, but every character gained about 305 experience points, not counting any modifiers that they might have, and just the 25 gold pieces and 25 or so, 24 silver pieces apiece, and that's pretty much it for how much they gain during this. Now, I give them session experience, I give them role playing experience, I give them combat experience, and loot experience. Um, and so, on average, they're getting per session about 300 to 350 or so. If it's a very heavy combat session, then they'll get obviously more than that. If there's any magic items or big treasure caches that they get, then that also changes it as well. Um, I'm mindful of experience as they're gaining experience. I try to be fair. I try to reward. When they're doing something like really really well and so on. It's the rating system that actually has a bigger impact, I think, on the player characters than it is as much how much gold they're getting and how much experience points they're gaining as well. The rating system kind of affects them in multiple different ways, both socially, economically, and experience points wise. It really does help them, and so that's how I kind of monitor their growth along the way. Is to really try to give them the benefit of the doubt as to what rating they'll end up with, whether it's excellent, um, excellent, fair, average, or poor. So far, they have not gotten a poor rating. They've gotten a couple of average or slightly below average ratings, but for the most part, they've been averaging around a pretty good showing. Perhaps not excellent, but a pretty good showing. So just under a rating of 2 is where they've been falling on average um, throughout the first 16 episodes. So that's pretty much it. I just want to show you something very very quickly. So this is the party. If this is the first time you're seeing one of these videos, then I'll just do a real quick party introduction. So once again, all 9 players showed up, and so Amalric, our Gray Elf fighter magic user, Angus, our human ranger, Breeze, our elf cleric. He's a high elf, by the way. Cedric, our human mage. Ennis, our human fighter. Candrius, our human paladin. Crandon, our halfling thief. Mirador, our human cleric. And Sparrow, our half-elf druid. And as you can see, this is using Roll20, and you can see that they have their I can't think. It shows their deficits in their hit points. So when you go here, actually, I'll go to this view here so you can see them a little bit bigger. I'm thinking that this should be. Hopefully that presentation worked right. So here you have them all, and you can see that it's a fairly well-rounded party. I mean, there's 2 clerics, there's 2 magic users, although one is a dedicated magic user and the other is a fighter magic user, and a good combination of ranged and melee combat. A druid thrown in there for some more interesting kind of spell-like abilities that she can throw out there. The party is 8 men and one woman, so Leah's doing a great job being the sole woman in the group, and it's great fun and pleasure to have that mixture of of players, and so so we're doing really well. I mean, the campaign is going very, very well. I think the players are enjoying it, or actually, I know they've said that they're enjoying it. Let me get back to views here. It's not quite cooperating. There we go. So once again, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I answered that question about the economy and how things are going. I like to always tip off a little bit and, like tip the hat for my players to give them a little something to think about. And I'm certainly thinking about some changes to training and such, and their ability to earn money once they become 5th level. And so that'll be a good like little teaser for them, and hopefully a surprise for them once they do get to 5th level. So that will take a little while to go for them to get to that point. I'm assuming it'll be several weeks before they even get to 4th level or so. So 5th level, I'm assuming it'll probably be about 6 to 8 weeks from now. So once again, thanks for joining. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the questions and comments section. If you hadn't subscribed, please consider subscribing. Share the video. That's the best way to get to get this out. If you want to share with your friends and tell them, hey, you know what? This is an AD&D first edition campaign that's being run. I do recaps. I don't do live play. We like to focus on playing when we're doing playing and not thinking about, well, we're on camera, we're recording this, and I think the players play differently when we do it that way. I'd much rather just get their input for the recaps and then just do a recap. Although going down the road, I probably would like to invite some of my players to just come in and to do these. Maybe we'll do like a live feed for one of our session recaps in the future. That might be a lot of fun, actually. That way they can go in just in chat, explain what they were thinking and what they were hoping, and what they really enjoyed and what they thought could have gone a little better, and so that's something I'll look to do in the future as well. So again, thanks for joining. Have a great rest of your weekend. Stay safe out there, and I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime soon. You'll have a great evening.